Howdy folks, Chris McLean back with yet another episode of the show. And in the studio today, I've got Woj Kwasi from Kwasi. And he's been in the web industry for over 20 years. And he started as a web app developer and multimedia guy. And Kwasi was founded in 2011 as an SEO agency, which transformed into inbound marketing. Now they offer paid automation services. They're platform agnostic and client-centric. Whatever legacy systems clients have in place, they digitally transform them and make their website their most valuable business asset. Was excited to get into all things digital assets and web platform. Thanks for jumping on the show.
Nice. Thanks for having me, Chris. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. No, you've got let's say a fairly traditional but an interesting journey where you were kind of the worker, right? You were the developer, and then you've shifted into your own agency. Take us through sort of that process. Were you in multiple different agencies? Were you in big agencies? What was it that sort of helped you make that shift to I want to run my own shop?
Yeah, I was a web developer for many years, and it just got to a point where it felt like building houses. You're building one, moving off to the next project. But the common kind of thread was business owners, or they'd always ask me where are the customers, and I'd say, I don't know. I've built it to spec. What do you mean? It's functional. It works. And so I started naturally getting curious about the marketing side, which led me on to consulting. And I really wanted to start consulting more on how to build the websites. Coming from the inside and knowing how things are put together, it's much easier to kind of understand working with devs and having managed a few little projects. I moved to Sydney and I worked for a couple of one web agency. But yeah, I got to a point where I was practically running the shop for the guy. I had one interesting task, which was, hire a web dev for, I think it was 25K salary, which I achieved. It was really, really hard in the Sydney market.
It's not a lot of incentive.
Yeah. So, yeah. But then, a lot of supervision, a lot of other things. But yeah, I got to a point where I wanted to consult, and anyway, things didn't quite work out, and I took a break. And I started looking for work, and I found two options. One was because I was pretty platform agnostic. I was across .NET, PHP, a bunch of things. And I found this job. It was either, .NET developer, and then this other opportunity, which was technical SEO consultant, which, through, I guess, many different obstacles, I ended up getting a call at the big day out boiler room. I think that I got a technical SEO role, and that kind of changed my career path. And I've always been good at document formatting, and I think a lot of SEO is about the reports you present and how you tell the story to customers. But yeah, that sort of changed my career. And I worked for the Found agency. Had some really, really good mentors there, and started working for some pretty big brands. And, I kind of, because I had the technical background, I learned about copywriting, I learned about the marketing side. And I found over time, it's a lot easier to kind of learn the marketing than it is the technical. And where we call ourselves tech SEOs or technical marketers, you've kind of got to have that understanding, because then you can sort of call people's BS, or you sort of understand the development process, in particular, like a lot of the delays that happen along the way, or even encouraging devs to do SEO work, because it's sort of perceived as, not a priority. Like, I used to be the one focusing on the shiny things that the clients wanted, the functionality, or all the bells and whistles, all the, razzle dazzle kind of stuff that they were into, that they perceived as important. And, even just sort of learning about marketing and, looking at, when I did eventually launch the agency, the tagline was websites for robots and humans. So I sort of had that perspective that the robots were the search engines and humans are obviously people, and they're all different personas. So we've got to make a website for all of those personas from the get-go, whereas a lot of brands will forget about that. And when they build a website, a lot of, you've got all these like kind of biases that come into the mix. So you've got people, you've got the client who, drives this car, has this furniture at home. So therefore, I like these matching colors and all these biases. And then the web developer is like, I've built on this CMS before. This is my tech stack. This is my preference. I've got a set of partners and developers that work this particular way. So that's another set of biases. But we forget about, Google and also the customer's customer in that process. So it's more about what do they want, because they're the ones who are paying for things. So I kind of went into Sydney, worked at a found agency for a few years. It was kind of interesting learning about various different black hat techniques, gray hat techniques, and white hat techniques, because it was like 2009. So it was a bit more of a wild west in the SEO.
Yeah.
Like you could get away with a lot of things.
It's very different back then.
Yeah. And so, it was sort of interesting. Learned about a couple of, there was like all this arbitrage going on. Like the agency had a sister company, and I sort of, there's always like interns working for the sister agency, and they're coming in and they're clicking on things, and they're sitting there filling out forms every day. And, I think it took me 6 months to find out what they were actually doing, but they're exploiting this Yahoo ads hack, which was generating revenue. And, but as soon as, Yahoo patched things up, it was like, oh, that business had to shut down because it was, there goes the business model.
Yeah,
so kind of, it's made me think about long-term strategies, and there's a lot of like hacks and things in our industry. And, especially dealing with clients, you want to kind of protect their domains and think about long-term strategies. Of course, you've got to kind of think about the short-term game as well, because people, in the real business world don't have a lot of time to wait. And that's where paid kind of activities kind of supplement that as well. But I think creating that foundation is really important. So after, I guess, the found agency, I came back to Adelaide, which is my hometown. I was really excited. I think there was like a bunch of mergers. Found got acquired by what they called Returnity, which was like an email platform. They're all owned by the Photon Group. And then Salmat Digital was starting, and they bought 4 Photon companies. And I was going to be head of SEO there. So I went back to Adelaide to, high five everyone. It's like, cool. I've got promotion and stuff. I met a girl, and then, went back to Sydney, and all of a sudden, didn't like any of my housemates, and made an exit plan to get out of Sydney. In hindsight, cool thing was I launched my agency working from home. I got married, which was pretty rushed at the time. But I saw an opportunity when I moved back to Adelaide that there was, so I resigned and I didn't take up that post. But I kind of was in love, I guess, at the time. But, it gave me that kind of drive to start my own thing. And I noticed there was a gap in the Adelaide market. There was, full-scale agencies doing everything under the sun, jack of all trades, or there was solo operators. So I figured, boutique agency specializing in SEO, good opportunity. And it was 2011. So as you probably recall, Google was coming out with a lot of black and white animal algorithm updates like Penguin, Panda.
And Panda, and
So we were sort of forced to, not that, I was looking at, I had that awareness of black hat techniques, but it was, it's pure white hat, no dodgy link building, all about content, marketing, and trying to, link building is one of the hardest things we have to do in SEO. So it's, like, why would people link to our website? We've got to create an asset that is link worthy and people want to link to. So that's a really important thing that we try to address in any strategy we put together. But yeah, that was the genesis of the agency.
Of Kwasi. It's a heck of a story, but quite I'd say familiar, but it's a really interesting journey. Sort of, went through and got that experience, and every experience kind of led to the next thing and the next evolution and the next thought process, and sort of end up finally doing something that you're passionate about and you love, and sort of your thing, and that's a journey that a lot of us take, and we get a taste of something big and go, sometimes when that feels wrong, like getting agencies merging, getting into bigger players, bigger clients. Some people that's the path, and that's what they want to do. But for others, some of us, we go, there's something about that feels wrong, and you sort of got to follow your own version of whatever that agency looks like for you. That self-awareness is super important. So, well, I could do that, or I could do this, but this one feels better, right? There's can seem like a strange way to make decisions, but super, because you're coming from that more emotional center, like this feels right, and that actually carries a lot of weight. When you feel good about what you're doing, it helps propel motivation and passion, curiosity, all that kind of good stuff. But you make a really good point as well about that, black versus white, but that importance of short-term wins. Like when we get clients, we've got to give them some sort of short-term win, right? We want to give them quick wins, something we're like, great, these guys know what they're doing. We're getting some sort of return, but they're also setting us up for long-term, long-haul sustainability as well. So it's always important to, not that that's necessarily black and white, but to have, you sort of put it in a better way, that sort of idea of hacks, right? Hacks and short-term wins, and everyone wants the hack, right? The money thing that if I just do this, millions fall out the back end. But that sort of balance between a hack that works and gets us going, and then sustainable performance over time. How does that kind of look like from your SEO digital perspective?
There's a lot of articles, you come across. We've even had clients like show them to us. It's like, make $1 gazillion in 6 weeks by applying my 10-step program, and I've been watching a lot of scam videos lately. There's this pretty cool channel called CoffeeZilla on YouTube where he debunks a lot of like crypto scams and pump and dump things, and it's kind of like multi-level marketing, and it's the same sort of thing. But with that sort of thing, it's an isolated situation. And the way we look at helping businesses is we've got to understand their business. Every business is unique. They have a different pulse, different footprint, a different history. So we really need to understand where they've come from, what their history looks like, and what they want to achieve. And so we take, that sort of, those sort of success stories with a grain of salt, because they may have worked in a very, different condition. Like, I was standing on one foot, spinning a plate on one finger, and the wind was blowing west. And cool, it's really hard to replicate those conditions and get exactly the same results. So we've always been accountable and very results driven. So a lot of agencies will kind of report things like metrics, likes. I equate them to like someone walking across the street and winking at you, and it's like, cool, what do I do with that? That's how do I try to reverse engineer the client's bank account to all the steps sort of driving results, because it's important to demonstrate that return on investment. So then, and that's where that short term paid activity is probably easiest to do that, because it's like directly, like it kind of correlates and scales the amount of money you put in generates like a multiplier return. Having said that, we work with some pretty difficult, unique niches. With customers that sell jewelry or shoes, like there's huge demand out there, and it's easier to predict and do things. But with some customers, we've got some real niche SaaS tech in the technology space, in the finance space, and it's kind of like we're trying to generate demand, and we're Google partners, but we're asking Google a bunch of questions that they can't even answer. They're just like, no one's asking questions. It's like, who are you, the FBI? It's like, no. There's this weird dichotomy that really, really annoys me. It's like, coming from the search side, if you look at the search quality guidelines, it's like, here are websites that are good, that will accept in the search results. And then if you go into the display network and where they place your ads, it's like a lot of these sites are dubious, and it's like they would not meet the search quality guidelines.
Yeah,
so on the one hand, you're good. On the other hand, you're kind of like just trying to make as much money as possible.
Yeah, funny that Google wants to make money.
Yeah. Well, the way I look at it is they've got to pay the bills and keep the lights on in their data centers, right? So it's it's a huge beast. They got to keep going.
Yeah, the internet's a pretty big place as well, I guess. So you're bound to get some spammy placements or placements on places that aren't necessarily ideal. But I mean, that's interesting. Have you found that some of those dodgy sites actually perform well, or are they're dodgy and they tend to not perform well? Is there sort of a dichotomy within that? Again, sort of coming back to black hat, white hat, right? Can you leverage some spammy, crappy site to actually get traction?
It's kind of because like with remarketing, if the user has been to those sites, it works. But for the most part, we're usually finding them when we're using our prospecting audience pools, or Google's got this nice little tick box which is like audience expansion. So when you enable that, it's like, hey, we're just going to cast the net as wide. And the more I've been reading into their antitrust lawsuit, Google's got an inventory, and so even we're finding at the moment, like we've increasing some client budgets, and the bigger leap you take, it's just got to fulfill that quota. And so it won't necessarily find the right fit. It will just find the fit to spend that quota.
Yeah, right.
We're kind of, without getting too political, we're trying to make things work without, and it's hard. There's such a monopoly as well. They kind of, they're so entrenched in the internet, but it's important to know how they work, because there's so many people, we call them window shoppers, that are paying for wasted clicks. Like if you're not, putting in negatives or different things, like we saw this one example where someone typed in watches and this $100,000 Rolex appears in the first result, and who can afford that? But out of curiosity, you're probably going to click on it and go, what is this? It's kind of a bit curious.
Yeah.
But the advertisers spent money on a click, but look, the ROI on a 100K watch is probably got a bit of
and they need one sale to make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting navigating that landscape. When I said that there are other alternatives, I guess, right? Bing and Yahoo, but really it's a Google play. Right? When you're looking at search and you're looking at this, there really is a Google play. Bing and Yahoo, they pick up a small minority of other searches for certain demographics, right? There could be certain demographics that are on those other platforms where it's like Facebook, right? If you want to find people on a social media platform, Facebook's the place you got to go. Right? Facebook and Instagram, it's all the same place. So these monopolies that are present, they're always going to be part of the ecosystem that we're existing in as marketers and as agency owners, and helping our clients get results in those places. So exactly what you're saying, you've got to understand the environment, you've got to understand the arena that you're operating in. And the more, it's interesting that you're talking about you getting under the hood of Google a bit and looking like really under how do they operate, what are they doing, what's happening in legal cases, because a lot of the time that's the stuff that can give you the real insights to really what's going on. And what they're, as you said, you're talking about biases up front, but Google has biases as well. So if you can understand that stuff.
And there's a bunch of patents as well. Google release a lot of patents, and that's often there's a great resource, a guy called Bill Slavsky has got a site called SEO by the Sea. So he kind of reads the patents for you and just, gives you a nice summary of the article. So it's good to know what features or different things they're working on, because it gives you a few clues and pointers.
Yeah. So just to, where do you see that going? Where from your research and your insights, where is Google heading? Are we heading towards voice search? We're heading to more and more AI and machine learning algorithms, smarter, more intrusive, perhaps. But I mean, voice search is something that's certainly something that I've seen is sort of a shift that's happening from input-based text search to voice search and Google Home and all that kind of ecosystem. Where do you see Google particularly as a platform shifting?
Yeah, I think we're all going to become cyborgs. We're going to get chips inserted that'll be semi-immersed.
Well, we're already cyborgs, right? This is a second brain already, so we technically already are. Yeah.
Well, I got the new Google Pixel, and it's just amazing how immersed things are, and I think we're going to see just that crossover between devices, desktop, mobile. Everything's going to be integrated. So the voice search is going to be really prevalent. Machine learning, it's a funny one because it's great. It's super useful with a great data set. So if you put junk in, you're going to get janky results back. But if you have good clean data and you kind of keep cleaning it, it's going to be brilliant. So it's about so I think the future is going to be, I think more marketers need to be a bit smarter about keeping an eye on things and not relying on set and forget, like, cool, the machine will do all the work for me. So I think, lazy marketing is going to be more and more exposed. From Google's point of view, they're still going to become a monopoly. I don't know. Things might change with all these lawsuits, but it's just going to be a slow rollout. It's probably good to, diversify. So you mentioned Bing. Bing's got like pretty good market share in terms of their ad network. You've got you've also got the Ecosia browser that they're on. You've got DuckDuckGo. So it kind of exposes a bit more market share through our advertising platform. But yeah, I think the future of search, like as the younger demographics kind of step in and evolve a bit more, voice search is definitely going to be a thing, which is just creating content around how people communicate with their voices, which is a lot of questions. So I guess, and creating video as well, because YouTube, especially during the pandemic, became, it was always the second largest search engine in the world, but it's the quickest growing search engine as well. And, so I think that'll be the future of Google's focus a little bit, just more investment in YouTube, and also that will be cleaning up quality and different things, just trying to make the internet a safer place, because those algos can direct you down a particular rabbit hole and influence you, and you kind of, what you get hooked on. And your beliefs. So
it's going to feed you more. You started the show talking about biases, right? And that's literally what you're getting whether you're on any of these platforms. They're literally just feeding your biases. So what you search for, it gives you more of that stuff. And what you speak about, it gives you more of that stuff now, because these things are always listening. Any device watches whatever you got on, whether it's up front or not, this stuff is listening to you. And I've had many occasions when I've had a conversation about something I've never typed into Google before, and then ads have started popping up for that thing. So it's there are, like, I've literally seen it myself. I know other people have seen it too, where literally voice search, whether you think you're voice searching or not, it's there and it's happening already. So yeah,
Yep.
really interesting that you said that immersion between whether it's a watch, this, a chip in your hand, a vaccination, who knows? We're getting more and more connected to these ecosystems, whether we like it or not. So, as you said, understanding the arena, understanding the game that's being played, super important to be able to navigate it. And from your perspective and our perspective as agency owners, to help our clients do better business on those platforms.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is again what you're saying up front. Like, our job is to understand our clients and our clients' market, right? So we've got to understand that sort of 2 levels down and not get caught up in the client's biases of, well, I drive a BMW and I wear blue suits, so everything should be blue and have BMW in it. Versus, well, what's actually your client? That's great, but what does your client want? And you say, what does the platform want? What are the robots and the humans, as you're saying? It's important distinctions to make. Yeah,
for sure. It's all a fun space. It's just, got to be aware. And I think that, that lazy marketer point of view, I think, in the agency, we've got a team of really passionate people that are just hungry to learn, curious, and culture's always been something that I've focused on from day one. Because I always wanted to sort of build a place which is the best of all the places I'd previously worked at and I'd experienced. So that cultural fit is really important. So it's easier to train someone on the skill side than it is to, have a highly skilled person and change their attitude. That's interesting experience.
Hire for attitude, train for skill, as they say sometimes. That can work out well.
But, we have some cool cultural things, like we've got a weekly concierge, and they kind of run stand up in the mornings, and then on Fridays they kind of choose what food we have for team lunch and cook the barbie, and we do a jukebox in the afternoon. We've got like this. During the pandemic, I found this website where you can kind of share a Spotify playlist and then play it through this website. So we kind of tune into that, so that people that are coming into the office can listen, and people from home can tune in as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I always find that really interesting how agencies have adapted, and particularly around culture, because it's such a person-to-person human interaction piece. And now that we're fragmented and apart from each other, it's really interesting how you maintain some semblance of similar experience across people that aren't in the same physical space. So yeah, I love that idea. Sharing music, right? That can be a massive thing, to feel like you're in the same space somehow.
Yeah. And the concierge picks a different theme, and often it's sort of related to some news event that's been in the week. And it's a cool way that people connect, and everyone looks forward to the Friday, and
love it.
Just a nice vibe.
Yeah, love it, man. Thanks so much for dropping by. Heaps of really good information in there. Lots of insights for particularly people in the search and SEO sort of space, to understand that those distinctions between black and white, sustainability over time versus those quick wins, and that are great insights into maintaining culture. Super important for where we're at the moment. If people do want to find out more about you, mate, where are some of the best places for them to get connected and find out more about you?
I'd say LinkedIn and Instagram is probably where I'm most active, and I say active in double quotes, because I'm often found helping clients as a priority and then living life off of social media. But LinkedIn, Instagram, or email woj@kwasi.com as well. I sort of play a dangerous game of inbox zero. Which, I like to keep people happy and responsive.
Awesome.
It's been awesome. Really nice chatting with you, man.
Yeah, you too, mate. Absolute pleasure. It's been really insightful. Always, lots of lessons for the folks listening at home, and appreciate you dropping by and sharing your journey and your experience. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that have had similar experience, and they've started their agencies off the back of similar types of, well, I did this and I didn't like that vibe, and then I tried this and it was okay, and then I did this and I got mentored and loved it and learned some stuff. And then this happened and I didn't vibe on that. So I started my own thing. It's quite a familiar journey. So yeah, thanks for being so authentic with that and taking us through that entire journey. Wish you all the best going forward, and hopefully as we move forward out of whatever world we're moving into, you're well positioned to take advantage of whatever's next. Keep reading those Google bylines and guidelines and put yourself in a good position, I think.
Cheers, appreciate it. And all the best. Yeah, keep in touch.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Look forward to staying in touch. Thanks everyone for watching this episode, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.